Hello, dear friends. There are days that shouldn't exist. I slept badly and I didn't know why. Now I do. Opinion piece. D-Day has arrived. Reset of history. Clash of civilisations. Bitcoin plummets 6%. Military attack on Iran. War of Gog and Magog. Let's start. In quotes. Mum, why are they bombing our house? Come out, Mum. War has no why, because it is absurd. That thing touched my soul, as news arrives that 80 people have perished in the attack on 2 primary schools near the Strait of Hormuz. Darkness is making its final stand at this moment. Pray for peace. But let's reflect before reporting the news. In quotes, for as lightning that comes from the east is visible in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Matthew 24:27. The biblical prophecy most closely linked to the current war in the Middle East is that of Ezekiel, where Persia is part of a coalition led by Gog and Magog that attacks Israel in the end times. Another key passage is Revelation 16:12, about the kings from the east, whose path is prepared by the drying up of the Euphrates, interpreted by some as Iranian forces advancing toward Armageddon in the context of the current escalation. Clash. The world is entering a new era of clashing civilizations and values, where end-of-history theories have been proven wrong, and identity and cultural tensions dominate the global landscape. Industries are being sacrificed in the name of green religion, replaced by Chinese exports produced with coal, slave labor, and state subsidies. 35 years ago, political scientist Francis Fukuyama became famous for proposing that the end of the Cold War and the dissolution of the Soviet Union promised the rise and universalization of so-called Western liberal democracy. He conceived of Western liberalism as the endpoint of humanity's ideological evolution and the final form of a human government, expecting that all that human struggles would rush toward an imminent state of balance and future peace. Fukuyama declared that humanity had reached the end of history. G. Shark argues that Fukuyama's end of history thesis has been refuted by the realities of the 21st century, and that we are now fully entering a class of civilizations predicted by Samuel Huntington, where fundamental conflicts are cultural, religious, and identity-based, not ideological or economic. Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations theory posits that after the end of the Cold War, major world conflicts would not arise from political or economic ideologies, but from profound cultural and civilizational differences. According to Huntington, civilizations defined by shared religion, history, language, and traditions represent the highest unit of human identity, replacing nations or ideological blocs. Huntington presented this idea in his book, The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of World Order, as a response to Fukuyama's end of history. Influenced by Arnold Toynbee and Carol Quigley, he sees civilizations in a cyclical interaction of challenge and response, where contact generates unavoidable friction. He predicts violent clashes along fault lines between civilizations, fueled by globalization, which intensifies interactions and highlights opposing cultural identities. The celebrated French diplomat Charles Maurice de Talleyrand said of the Bourbons, in quotes, "It is customary for kings to steal, but the Bourbons do it on a grand scale. What Talleyrand said applies equally well to the self-destructive cult of globalists who hate themselves. Middle East. US and Israel launch large-scale military operation against Iran. Iran warns of a strong response and attacks US bases in the region. The Houthis in Yemen will resume their attacks tonight. Marco Rubio gave advance warning of the attacks to a small group of members of Congress. Norway states that the Israeli attack against Iran is not preemptive. Bitcoin plunges 6% after the massive attack against Iran. Miscellaneous. Images show the impact of Iranian missiles in Doha. Iranian students celebrate the attacks against Iran. A large fire continues to burn at the naval base in Bahrain. Mohammad Pakpour, commander of the Revolutionary Guard, has been killed. Iran attacked the US military base in Erbil in Iraqi Kurdistan. Reports indicate that missiles were fired from Lebanon toward Israel. Ayatollah Khamenei and President Pezeshkian were targeted, but the missiles failed. Oil and fuel shipments through the Strait of Hormuz have been suspended. A direct hit struck a base housing NATO forces in Kuwait. New explosions are reported in Qatar, the Emirates and Bahrain. Attacks against US military bases in Jordan. Iran announced that a barrage of missiles is headed toward Israel. The Israel defense system intercepts missiles over Haifa. Reset News. War on free speech according to Mike Adams. The Pentagon has just released 6 unresolved UFO videos. Technocracy will replace the old, destroyed system according to Catherine Austin Fitts. Biotechnology is key to Russia's industrial sovereignty, says Putin. More than 1 million uniformed officers are now deployed across the US to make arrests, according to the Storm Rider. The classified files admit to a slow poisoning in food to crush you with anxiety, hopelessness, depression, and dependency. Are you prepared when these events escalate? Rivers are freezing across Europe. Record snowfalls are being broken in Russia. And floods are overwhelming some of the most advanced cities on the planet. What happens when modern systems fail and no one has a plan B? Former CIA director John Brennan claims the agency pays people to be spies and then blackmails them, but doesn't consider it blackmail because it's about national security. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink now admits that the transition to solar and wind power will cause a global energy shortage after years of pressuring companies to do just that. The Supreme Court could overturn the 2020 election. This would trigger the Branson case and the removal of those who certified the election, with federal elections in 120 days. Introduction to the New Republic. According to Viva Noti, the Pleiadians said that invasive artificial intelligence and the black goo are the greatest threats to Earth. This substance destroys wealth. High-frequency souls are immune to it. Low-frequency souls are its victims. Look around you. Who's going crazy? Epstein. The Epstein files are a spiritual trap. If you look at them, you want to be able to forget them. The head of the Davos Forum resigns due to his ties to Epstein. Bill Gates apologizes for his ties to Epstein and confesses to his sexual affairs. The Dutch lawyer prosecuting Bill Gates, Ursula von der Leyen, Albert Bourla, and Klaus Schwab has been arrested and is being held in a maximum security prison. In a leaked video, Klaus Schwab promises that his body will live on after death and that his brain will be replicated through artificial intelligence and algorithms. Epstein's most disturbing property wasn't the island, it was Rancho Zorro, 7,500 acres in New Mexico, on public land, leased for $200 a year. It featured a private airstrip, tunnels, and underground rooms. Full thought summary. Jim Carrey wore a Biden mask for 4 years and the ship never noticed. According to Putin, Europe's decline is a direct consequence of the corrupt hierarchy that governs it. Argentine Union leader Jorge Solá stated that I find it difficult to call something that sets us back 100 years in terms of individual and collective rights, labor modernization. Argentina used to be the second richest country on the planet after Switzerland and has since fallen into the abyss of the third world. However, all of the Western and Asian civilization is facing an even worse crisis. In Russia, the birth rate has fallen to its lowest level in more than 2 centuries. In the first quarter of 2025, births decreased by 4% compared to the previous year. China and most developed countries are experiencing a similar fertility crisis. All of this demonstrates that we need a fundamental change in our social and economic management systems. We need to create a world where women and all mothers in the animal kingdom feel safe to have children. If we end this anti-life infection that plagues our planet, we can turn Earth into the paradise it was meant to be. We also have the technology to make ourselves immortal, as this news suggests. On Thursday, Japan took another step toward approving the sale of 2 regenerative medicine products that use stem cells, marking the world's first cell-based treatment that is close to commercial use. The experimental drugs are designed to treat serious heart disease and advanced Parkinson's disease. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.